Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. Dun, dun. It's a raccoon with a talk show slinging culture facts you might not know. From the biggest flops to the greatest hits, this is Trash Can Tidbits.
What's happening, everyone? I'm Beaton, and I shall be your trivia-bearing trash panda for this week. I'm so glad you guys out there have been loving all my lists, and there shall be more of them, and possibly even newer content to come. For now, though, I hope you enjoy this week's random pieces of trivia, so here we go. Fact 1. Did you know that the movie version of The School of Rock made an indirect reference to the future stage musical version of the film? In the movie, Miranda Cosgrove's character sings the song Memory from the musical Cats very badly. That song was written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, who, in addition to creating many loved Broadway musicals such as Evita, Jesus Christ Superstar, and of course, The Phantom of the Opera, later wrote the music for the stage version of The School of Rock, which premiered on Broadway in 2015. In 2016, the cast of School of Rock made a special mashup/medley with two other Lloyd Webber musicals, Phantom and the Broadway revival of Cats. Fact 2. Did you know that the famous scene of Indiana Jones casually shooting a flamboyant swordsman in Raiders of the Lost Ark was somewhat improvised? During the location filming in Tunisia, most of the cast and crew got food poisoning, including Harrison Ford. The scene called for Indy to use his whip to get the sword out of his attacker's hands and engage in a lengthy battle. But due to Ford being sick, this prevented him from even trying it. Finally, just before the cameras rolled, he told Steven Spielberg that, "I'd rather just shoot this guy." And the scene was filmed that way and became one of the most famous gags of the whole movie. Fact 3. Sticking with Raiders for this next fact, did you know that the pilot of the airplane in the famous runway fight sequence was played by the film's producer? Frank Marshall, who is close friends with writer George Lucas and director Steven Spielberg, was pulled aside by Spielberg himself and put into the scene after the original actor was out sick. And guess why? The original actor had food poisoning. Marshall himself ended up getting heat stroke because of his heavy costume and him being stuck inside a locked cockpit all day, though it was all worth it in the end. Today, Marshall continues to be a film producer along with his wife and producing partner, Kathleen Kennedy, who is currently now the CEO of Lucasfilm. Fact 4. Did you know that actress Allison Janney, who won an Oscar for playing the mother of U.S. figure skater Tonya Harding in I, Tonya, Lavona Golden, actually trained as a figure skater as a young girl? She definitely was on her way to becoming pro, but an incident when she was 17 occurred when she walked into a sliding glass door and her leg injuries were so severe she almost had to have her leg amputated. She recovered, but it was enough to make her give up figure skating, but she ended up becoming an actress instead. And when I, Tonya came along, she channeled that turmoil and frustration into her performance, and she ended up winning an Oscar as a result. Fact 5. Did you know that the screenwriter for I, Tonya is named Stephen Rogers? Coincidentally, the movie also stars Sebastian Stan, famous for playing Bucky Barnes / the Winter Soldier in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Barnes' best friend in the series is, well, who else? Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. Fact 6. Did you know that the first Resident Evil game has an unreleased port for the Game Boy Color? That version was about 90% complete and actually looked very promising, including screenshots in various publications, but in the end, that version was cancelled due to hardware limitations, but the ROM has since been released online and is actually playable despite its setbacks. It does remain technically impressive for its time, though. We ultimately would not get a portable version of Resident Evil 1 until the release of Resident Evil Deadly Silence for the Nintendo DS, which, in my personal opinion, is the definitive version of the game. Fact 7. Did you know that there have only been 3 Tomb Raider games that were made specifically for portable consoles? The first 2 were simply Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider Curse of the Sword, both for the Game Boy Color, and Tomb Raider The Prophecy for the Game Boy Advance. The first 2 games were well received, but the third one not so much, despite being reminiscent of more classic games of the franchise up to that point. While there have been several other portable games for the PSP, like Tomb Raider Legend or Tomb Raider Anniversary, those games actually don't count as they're ports of full console games. Fact 8. Did you know that despite being a male character, Toto in The Wizard of Oz was actually played by a girl Cairn Terrier? Her name was Terry, and she would go on to have a successful movie career in films such as The Women and the Jack Benny comedy George Washington Slept Here. Toto, however, would be her most famous role for obvious reasons. She passed away in 1945 at the age of 11. Fact 9. Did you know that it was Gene Wilder's idea to create his character's limp and somersault in Willy Wonka's introductory scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? In fact, it was one of the stipulations he had when he was being considered for the role. He came up with all of his character's quirks, such as appearing to go mad during the boat scene and him yelling at Charlie towards the end of the movie. His reasoning being that he wanted to test the audience as well as the children into questioning whether he was either lying or telling the truth. It added to the overall spontaneity of his performance. Fact 10. Did you know that the character of Thumper in Bambi was created just for the movie and is not present in the book that inspired the film? Originally, Thumper started out as just an ordinary rabbit that was to have just one line, but when child actor Peter Bain auditioned with the line, "Did the young prince fall down?" the casting director ultimately loved how he said the line. So much so, they ended up creating the character of Thumper based on that single line reading from Bain, creating so much needed comic relief to the movie, and the rest is history. And there we go for this week. I hope you enjoyed this list as usual, and please comment below if you have a suggestion for any more facts you'd like to see in a future video, or even a question you might have for another Q&A. You never know what'll be in store. Keep those questions coming, peeps! Thanks for watching, and again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos. See you next week. Bye for now.